the drug trade has definitely spilled into America in a way that has caused a lot of corruption and a lot of blurriness with banks and money laundering, with purchasing of other items, things like the cattle market, things like
Yeah.
oil. So
Real
I
estate.
guess exactly. And so it is interesting for the president to call them a terrorist organization is definitely a good thing. But I think the American people don't understand the branches of what happens with drug trade and the financial backing that it has, which gives so much more power to Mexico in its own, but the cartel and how it reaches into America.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. And getting back to this declaration of terrorism designation, I just reminded myself of it by saying real estate. It makes it easier if you can identify, if you can break through the front companies and the shell companies, and get to the origin of the cartel's real estate holdings. This declaration also allows you to seize those. You know how we're always announcing sanctions against the Russians and the Iranians and whomever. Those are mostly for show, because we're so granular on our sanctions now that we're sanctioning individual people, even that don't have holdings in the United States. But the Mexicans, the cartel members, that is, have real estate all over the world. Yeah. And then if we can identify that real estate, we can work with other countries to seize it.
You're seeing what we have right now with the new president and administration. I'm really excited about them right now. I'm really excited about the direction they're going with the borders. And you see what's happening on our borders in the Mexican side with the cartel. What are some thoughts on some opportunities that the CIA can use to really benefit the national security effort in protecting our country?
One of the things that the CIA does, I have to be careful. I'm going to carefully word my response.
Understood.
There are certain cover jobs for the CIA overseas that allow them access to people approaching an American embassy to whom they otherwise would never have access. Okay? If I were the CIA director today, because we're taking border security so much more seriously than we were, over the last 4 years, I would actually put CIA officers on the borders, do the same kind of job on the borders that they do in American embassies overseas. That is, identifying people of intelligence interest or of operational interest that they otherwise would not have access to. Look, we all know that there are bad guys trying to cross the border to do bad things, and they're pretending to be intending refugees.
Yeah.
We need to be able to sort those people out, and certainly block the ones you can block, arrest the ones you can arrest, but then recruit and double back the ones that are recruitable. I don't think we're doing that. I don't think there are CIA officers on the borders. I don't think there ever have been.
I've never met anyone that told me they were, but I don't believe there is.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think you're right.
Is there something that it's tough, man, because I respect our government and the three-letter agencies and the efforts they make. I know it's sometimes it's hard times. I know some of the decisions they make obviously have blowback, but I do support the efforts of what we do as a country. I didn't mention it earlier, but there is conversations that say that our CIA has worked with some cartels because it's almost like, having a closer relationship with one enemy that's better than the other enemies, right? And so that's kind of the situation that's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious to see in the future if we hear more about that, because you have still certain cartel organizations who kind of take lead, whether it be just by notoriety or be by just pure, just harsh threat. And I think the Sinaloa cartel is one that has always seemed to have been on more of the wavelength of what our government is needing, in a sense,
Wow.
if I'd say, or some kind of partnership. I don't know if there is. There's nothing official. I'm just saying,
right.
You see things and you're like, that's odd. And just recently, El Mayo's capture kind of felt like a very odd, like, oh, that's an interesting conversation to continue to be had. So I'm curious to see what happens in the near future, and I really hope that whatever our government does, it is in the best effort of protecting our nation. And right now, protecting our nation means closing those borders and stopping as much fentanyl from ever coming into this country.
There's an old saying in the Middle East that's applicable everywhere. It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think that oftentimes the CIA takes that saying far too seriously.
Explain that.
Well, the enemy of my enemy sometimes should be my enemy, not my friend. You know, if the Cali cartel is working against communist insurgents and I'm working against communist insurgents, that shouldn't necessarily mean that I ally myself with the Cali cartel. You can have two enemies at the same time. You know, if the Russians and the Chinese decide to fight each other over something, that doesn't mean we have to ally ourselves with either the Russians or the Chinese. You know, we made that mistake in the Iran-Iraq war, where Iran and Iraq were both our enemies. In the late 1970s, Iraq invades Iran, and we arm both sides.
It's all fascinating, you know. It's all fascinating, and it's funny when we've talked about television shows multiple times here, and I think I am someone who spends a lot of time in the film and television space, right? And somehow some of these shows get it almost too close to accurate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what. There was a guy, I happened to be, and I apologize, I only have 5 minutes left, but
no, same.
I just happened to be sitting next to a guy on a plane. And I generally never talk to people on planes. I just sit there and mind my own business. And this guy was talkative, very talkative. And he said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I work for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee." "Oh, that sounds fascinating." I said, "No, it's actually really boring. It's not what I thought it was going to be. But my previous job was fascinating." I told him what I did at the agency. And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Oh, I created a TV series." I said, "Really? Is it something I might have heard of?" He said, "Maybe. I'm the #1 show on basic cable. It's called Burn Notice." And I said, "Burn Notice? I love that show. I've watched every single episode of that show. In fact," I said, "your tradecraft is so good. I actually watched the credits in slow motion to see who your intelligence advisor was." And he said, "I don't have one. I've been fascinated by the CIA since I was a little kid. I've read every book." By the time we landed in Los Angeles, I was the script consultant for the Burn Notice. He's been a friend of mine ever since. Then he recreated True Lies, and I was the script consultant on True Lies for the one season it was on. It got canceled. But sometimes, man, in Hollywood, they get it exactly right.
I know. It's fascinating. Either way, John, man, thank you so much for your time. Honestly, I hope we get to circle back and do it again.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original presented by First Form. You guys go check out First Form, our incredible sponsor, but also like, share, tell your friends. Until next time, take care.
For the past 15 years, we've been known as the turnkey branded content company, right? That means that we take brand and content to the next level. So if you're Garmin and you want us to shoot your new watch at the side of a cliff in the middle of Colorado, we source the location, we get the permits, we find the talent, we get the side-by-sides. We make everything happen for a world-class piece of branded content. And that's really where we've kind of cut our teeth. And about 5 years ago, we launched Ironclad Originals as the second part of Ironclad. So you've got the branded content on one side, and you've got Ironclad Originals. And what Ironclad Originals is intellectual properties by way of franchises that can start as a podcast, build an audience, and develop into a film or series that can be licensed or purchased by a major streaming platform. So to date, we've launched 8 Ironclad originals. Every one of them has topped the charts on Spotify and Apple and have grown to today over 5 million downloads a month. We're doing partnerships with Warner Brothers, major sporting networks, and many, many other brands to bring their product to our audience by way of our podcast. Now, you may have seen some of our podcasts with Andy Stumpf, Vincent Vargas, Dom Rosso. We're launching 4 more this year. So these Ironclad originals are going to continue to evolve, continue to grow, and by the end of this year, our target is to have 10 million unique audience members on the Ironclad original platform. Now, these two sides of Ironclad are really yin and yang to one another, and you can come in on either side of that. One note is, the branded content and the original content has come together for one more unique offering called a brand podcast. We've taken all of our expertise on the Ironclad original side, mixed with the service-based business of the branded content, and now we're providing branded podcasts. That's a turnkey podcast that we can launch from 0 to full scale within 60 days. And we'll do 52 weeks of unique content where we build the studio, build the brand, book the guest, edit the shows, post the shows, engineer the shows, take everything that makes an Ironclad original unique, apply it to a brand, and build owned content for our brand partners that can take a brand to a whole nother level. You know, as we close this out, I just want you to think, this is something that you should be doing, whether it's with or without Ironclad. We truly believe that you should be creating brand podcasts. We truly believe you need the best branded content in the world. We truly believe you need a partner that can tell your story at an elite level. Okay, so this is something that you need to be doing with or without Ironclad. But one thing about Ironclad is that we are drinking our own Kool-Aid. We believe in this so much, we're investing in originals. We are testing the waters. We have the connections happening on this side of the house. We're proven and tested on the brand side. And we promise that if you come to us, we will bring all those resources together and bring them to you. And we will be an extension to your team to make you operate at an elite level. So those are the things that we're offering here at Ironclad. We're so excited. Thank you so much for all your support. We love you all.